Good evening, lovely tubers. My name is the White Mexican, and today I have a very special deck profile for you guys. One of my all-time favorite decks ever, Kashtira. There's a lot of crazy builds going on in January 2024. This is currently the build that I'm running, and it's been relatively consistent. Win rate has definitely been pretty successful in my personal opinion, at least here in the local echelon of competitive play. And we're just going to go ahead and get right into this for you guys, starting with the main deck, Monsters. I play a playset of Fenrir, a playset of Unicorn. I do run the playset of Riseheart. I think that this is best at 3. Sometimes you can side out 1 and just play 2, but I think starting out game 1, it's important to have 3, and I'll go into that a little bit later. We have 3 Shifter because this card is just like one of the main MVPs of this format. A lot of decks are really heavily dependent on their graveyard, and this card is just completely blowout. We have 3 Ash Blossoms, 1 Tear Element, 1 Scareclaw, and 1 Ogre. Now the reason why I play the 1-ofs, 1, 2, and 3 is just to have more bodies. In their own right, I do play the preparation, so that's one reason why I do play Ogre, but then Ogre's also the biggest beater, and I also like his Escape 5 and Banish, remove 1 face down is really, really great. These are all super great. Out of the 1-ofs, I think that Tear Element is the weakest, but I do play Dimensional Fisher as a playset in the main, so burning 3 off your opponent's deck under Fisher or even Shifter is pretty blowout, and again, it's just another body. And if I happen to have a Theosis in the grave that hasn't been removed from play already by Shifter or whatnot, it's just another great key element to use. So that is going to be it for the main deck Monsters. Moving on to the traps, I do play the 1-of Rivalry. As you notice, the majority of all of the Kashtira monsters are psychic besides Riseheart. Riseheart is the only one that is not psychic. It's a warrior, as you can see here. But everything else, Unicorn, Fenrir, Tear Element, Scareclaw, Ogre, they are all psychic, and even Shangira itself is a psychic, so I mean you can even still go into a couple extra deck plays and still under this card. It's really, really great, really powerful. If you do happen to get lucky and win the dice roll and you open with this set after going full combo or full board, it's really, really tough for a lot of techs to get around this, specifically Centurion. One of the main reasons why I started maining this is because my locals does have a couple of Centurion players that are very competitive, very smart players, and I definitely respect the deck. And this is just super good. And, you know, it's not just good against Centurion, but it's kind of the main reason. That, and again, they're all psychic, so it really doesn't hurt the Kashtira player. The single copy of Preparations and 2 Impermanence because it's Impermanence. Moving on to the Magic cards, I play a playset of Prosperity. You have to have this. Now, with Upstart Goblin coming to 3, there was a few days that I was experimenting with 3 Prosperity, 3 Upstart to run that 37-card deck, because this is a 40-card build and you really want to cut down. And also I was teching in 1 copy of 7 stars. Really did not like running Prosperity with the 3 upstarts and the 7 stars because you cannot draw cards the turn you activate this. And there really isn't a better card. Being able to dig for 6 gives you a lot of insight in your deck, and it really helps you dig for the specific card that you need in a pinch. So I opted, after a lot of experimentation, at least for now, I'm personally a fan of just running the playset of the Prosperities, even though I absolutely love Upstart, and I was super excited about it coming off the ban list. And I would love to run a 37-card deck. Technically, this card, in my personal opinion, at 3 is just all-around more consistent, so that's why I ended up cutting the Upstarts and the 7 stars and just simplified for proccing a place at a Prospe. We have, of course, 3 planets, 3 Theosis. I know some players are running 2. It sucks to brick on this. There's been more than several occasions that I've opened 2 or 3 of these, and it's quite horrid. It doesn't happen too often, every once in a while. It's pretty much if you open more than 1 of these, you're pretty much going to lose because it's just a hard brick if you don't open up a body. But usually you do. This usually gets ashed anyway, but if you're under Shifter, you can do some recursion if you play your plays in the right order, and you can, you know, cop a card from the remove from play zone. So really, really good stuff on that. Something that's kind of personal to me, three-dimensional Fisher. Now, this is kind of controversial. I feel like a lot of Cash players are not really paying attention to how powerful it is to have control over the graveyard, especially in this format with things like Fire Kings and Tier Element, and just to name a few. There's a lot of big-time decks, even Dark World. They need their graveyard, and the graveyard is such a key element to this format in January 2024. There's a lot of big-name decks out there that really rely on the graveyard as a utility box, and this plus the shifters just completely takes that away. It robs them from all their combos, their plays. The Horus engine is super, super big right now in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! In January 2024. A lot of powerhouse decks that are using that engine, and that requires the graveyard. So with that all being said, I think this is a fantastic card. This with Shifter is one of the MVPs of the deck. A lot of people, for some reason, don't expect a Cash player to be maining this, especially at a playset, going strong on the removal. This is a lot more of an aggressive build, but more of a control build in a way, in that sense of that aspects, because again, I do play the 3 Fisher. I mean, it's standard to play 3-dimensional Shifter, but D Fisher, people don't really expect that in 2024. And then also the rivalry, people don't really expect me to have that game 1. And again, if you win the dice roll, this is pretty blowout. If you don't, it's a little bit slower, but it's all around really good sauce. Of course, we have 3 Birth, and then with the 1-ofs, we have 1 Terraforming and 1 Talents. This usually changes a lot. I really have mixed feelings about Talents. This is rotated between an enemy controller and a droplet, but because I'm playing such a heavy removal build with the D-Fishers and the Dimensional Shifters and the Dimensional... I always... Shifter and Shifter. D-Fisher, because this is called D-Fisher, then you have Shifter, just Shifter, but you guys know what I mean. So 6 Shifters, or 6 Dimensionals, I should say. So this is debatable. This is really the interchangeable card. This Magic lineup doesn't really change for me personally, but the Talents is really the only one that's kind of flexible. I guess technically this is flexible too, because sometimes it really does suck not, losing the dice roll and not opening with this, but it's just too good. This is like Shifter. If you open this and you're going first, it's going to be pretty blowout for the most part, just the same as with Shifter. Now with Shifter, it's a little bit more versatile because you can go first or second. Call by is only at 1. You can proc this opening hand, and it's going to be pretty blowout against most matchups. But the thing with Shifter that's really scary, I mean, it's too good not to run. Every Cash player is going to play a proc a playset. But the thing is the balancing effect, and when people complain so much about this card, people like to wail on this card so much and how it needs to be banned, and it is a good card. It's really hard to stop. I mean, if you're not going first, open up called by, Gamma's at 1 right now. It is really difficult to stop. I get that, but this is a brick card. If we don't open with this, if Flu players or Cash players or whoever else, maybe what is that card called? The Exo Sister. If we don't open one of the 3 of these in hand 1 on turn 0, it's a 3-card brick in our main deck after that. So it's you have to draw into it. So I personally think it is a very balanced card. There's not a lot of decks that can run it. The 3, 4, 5 decks that can run it, at least in this format, you have to open with it. If you don't open with it, it's dead cards after that. So I think it's personally a balanced card. I'm probably a little biased because I play Kashtira, but that's just my personal white Mexican theory on it. Moving into the extra deck, I run a playset of Shingira. This is kind of interesting, a playset of Dark Armed. I was running 2 for the longest time, and it was fine. It works really good, but I have a hard time against Labyrinth sometimes. Majority of the times than not, I have a hard time against Labyrinth. There's a lot of local Labyrinth players here for me in New York, and I played a lot, actually, of Labyrinth players in Michigan as well when I was on winter break. So the reason why I scooped this from 2 to 3, I upped it to a playset, is because I was playing the Labyrinth player, and they're big monsters. They can't be targeted while they have all their set traps. And he actually recycled this, so I summoned 2, and then he used Big Welcome Labyrinth to bounce back the second one. So I ended up summoning it 3 times between the 2 copies I had in my extra deck. I ended up utilizing it 3 times, 2 times per copy, so 6 spot removals. Excuse me. And it still wasn't enough. I still, at the very end, we went to time, I was down by 100 life, and I couldn't get over the 300 beater. I didn't have Pressure Planet, and the biggest thing I had was Ogre at 28. So it was really, really hard. I couldn't run over it, and we ended up drawing and having to, roll for the match. Luckily, I got super lucky and I won the dice roll for the match, but it was just insane. I had completely taken game 1 and game 2. They're both gets Labyrinth, so it's very, very lengthy games. Very grindy, and then we went all the way to the 45 minutes into game 2, and I ended up losing game 2 by 100 life because of time, which is lame, but it is what it is, and then we ended up rolling for it. So I'd never want that to happen again, and just again, I curtail my deck specifically towards the local echelon of competitive play. I'm not really, targeting to go on, crazy events with this. This is really mostly just a build that's curtailed to my unique, specific locals here in upstate New York. So I decided to run 3 just for that reason specifically, because I don't want that to happen again. That's just me personally. I did up Big Eye to 3. This was a 2 of, just like Dark Arm, but I bumped it up to 3 because even though it does target, which is an extremely limiting factor, like you can't steal a Dragoon, or again, if you're playing the Labyrinth player, you can't target their stuff while they have set cards. But when it's just so good, it's just it's a snatch and steal on legs. A continuous, long-term change of heart, if you have it's really, really good. And it's pretty big for what it is, and it's just super good, honestly. I think it's just, and with Prosperity at 3, a lot of this stuff, at least one of the Big Eyes, at least one of the Shangiras, at least one of the Dark Arms are going to be ripped as fodder for the Prosperity. So I just like to have the names in reserve so I can proc off their effects. And this was a really, really hard decision on my part, because for the longest time, I was playing a playset of Red Eyes Flare Metal. This card is insane in time. Kashtira puts a lot of damage on the board really quick, and you can almost OTK your opponent and get them down to, a 1,500, 500, 1,000, really, really low. You can just proc even one of these is pretty, pretty lethal. 2 is insane. I really like running 3, but again, just because of my specific locals and the type of decks that cats are running around me, I did decide to cut 1 for the 3rd Dark Arm. That was the slot that took out the 3rd Flare. I think 2 is enough for now. It is super good. That's also something I do. Usually people only run one of these, one of these and one of Big Eye and one of, but they're just too good. I run 2. I run 3, 3, and 2. For now, it's been working very well for me, and I've been really pleased with the change. So we'll see how it performs continuing on in the rest of the format. Another one that I cut was Zeus. I usually ran 2 Zeus, so for upping the Big Eye from 2 to 3 was one of the Zeuses. So that was the other cut target. And then the other cut target, of course, was Dracosac. I cut out Dracosac because I wasn't using it. It was never coming out. It's a good, spot removal. We can use it under skill drain, whatever have you, but I just wasn't summoning it enough. And my theory is if I'm not using something frequently enough, I ended up just cutting it, and I replace it with something that I'm going to use more frequently, and it's going to see more play and more impact in my game state. So same with Zeus. I never really summoned Zeus because Cash really sets up a big board, and there's a lot of blowout things really disrupt this deck, like Evenly Matched, like Darkhold, like Regeki, like Lightning Storm. There's all these cards that are really just blowout cards that we want to stop. And Zeus isn't really the ideal play. The only time you really bring out the Zeus is if you're losing terribly, and it's like a last-ditch effort, just kind of like Typhon as well. It's like a last-ditch effort. I mean, if you are summoning these cards, you're looking for heavy advantage because you are ideally losing, or not ideally, but realistically losing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I did cut that to 1. Of course, this is just, good generic. You got to have this. This is just insane. I absolutely hate this card. This card is just... I hate this card so much, but it's just you can't not play this card. And for the longest time, I didn't really think I needed any links. If anything, by far, this is the most obscene, ridiculously annoying link ever to be made thus far, in my personal opinion, besides maybe Access Code. I lost to Access Code in one of my last locals, which just completely blowed up my field. So a little bit of PTSD about that link, but there's just such a blowout card. It's too good not to run. It's insanely expensive right now, but I had to pick it up because it's one of those unfortunate necessary evils. Same with Baron. if you can run it, you're going to run it. It's, you know, just a generically amazing card. And of course, everyone knows that the majority of us, the majority of pretty much every player plays an Ash, which serves as a tuner. You have plenty of level 7s. 3 and 7 is 10, so you can bust out a level 10 with Baron. For the side deck, I have 3 Lava Golems. This is so good going second. This is always, if I, you know, win or lose, regardless, game 1, I'm always siding this in. There's some really nasty extra deck cards out there that these just completely have just like instant spot removal, and it's just a gorgeous card. It's a Gen 1 card, Pharaonic Guardian, so really, really amazing artwork, great rarity, and just, again, just a completely just MVP side card. We have Harpy's Feather Duster. I've seen some people, actually the Centurion player I played, he actually made this as a one-of, which was very unexpected. That was Blau. He actually, I believe he hit me twice with this card, which was really, really what sealed the fate for me, and then also evenly. But super good as well. Cosmic, so Runic engines. I feel like everyone and their mom is running Runic engines. They're splashing in everything. So this card is super, super good for that. This is also good for hitting the Sarcophagus for the Horus engine, because everyone and their mom is running Horus as well if they can afford it. We have 2 skill drains because it's skill drain and I'm the White Mexican. And what would a deck profile by the White Mexican be without the one and only skill drain? And of course we have 3 evenly match and 3 D barrier, which are just, you know, completely blowout for, you know, synchro decks, mostly synchro and fusion in this format, but all around just really great, even sometimes XYZ. But this is the side deck. And then I personally like to use, again, I do run playset of Shang Era, so every once in a while, it's not very often. I used to play like a very heavy lockout control where I was just like, my main primary purpose is just to like lock out my opponent's entire field, and it wasn't too consistent. It was way too prone to Nibiru. I play a lot more safe now. I never summon, regardless of whatever deck I'm playing. I'm super, super reserved and cautious about Nibiru. I never, almost nearly never summon more than 4 monsters per turn, just because of that. Nibiru is just so disruptive. But I like to use these tokens. If you guys have any just to note tokens, I like to just kind of keep them right there with my 15 card extra deck, and you can just slap these on board, and it's pretty fun. So I know some people have like custom like hollow tokens that are like, you know, big X's and stuff, which are pretty cool, but I think these are just simple enough. You guys have some common tokens or some cool tokens laying around, you can use them. I think 10 is more than enough. There's little to no chance that you're going to lock out more than 10 zones, let alone 5, so I just think 5 and 5 is great. That is all I have for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you in